Welcome to our Zonta Says Now Intercontinental think tank. Our topic today is women's ownership, or how the international financial architecture impacts gender equal climate justice. My name is Carol Theobald and I am one of your hosts today. Right, before we begin, I'd like to cover some housekeeping. Please use the chat line to ask questions and make comments and tell us where you're speaking from today in the chat. Please put your microphone on mute, ask questions respectfully, and please keep them short and succinct. Our African-European journey today is technically led by me in Perth, Australia, but I'll be working behind the scenes, hosting this session, monitoring the chat line and setting up the breakout rooms. Our moderators are from 4 continents. From Africa, we have Joan Kabayambi from Kampala in Uganda. From Europe, we have Pierre Hultgren from Ledingo in Sweden, and Karen Lang from Berlin in Germany. From Asia, we may have Dilruba Ahmed from Chittagong in Bangladesh and Erica Lavia from Bombay in India. Sometimes their connections are a bit tenuous. And from the USA, we have Bobby Cardillo from Fairfax County in Virginia. Over to you, Pia.
Oh, thank you, Carol. This is our journey for today. To get us all on the same page, let's start with some facts and figures that give us initial insight into the current state of climate change, its economic consequences, and the impact of this development on the economic gender gap. We will then welcome and introduce our keynote speakers from Sweden, Jennie Sinclair, and from Uganda, Saadat Nakyejwe Kimuli. We will learn from their insights and experiences on women's ownership, and then have an intercontinental discussion, first in our breakout rooms and then in the plenary. We will then look how solutions recommended by diverse thought leaders and civil society from around the world influence the United Nations Pact for the Future, and how this relates to Zonta International statement on climate change and its call to action. We will discuss this in plenary with our panelists. Finally, we will close the session with some information on Zonta Says Now, an upcoming important event. So, how aware are we of the planetary emergency? Yeah, we can see it almost every day. We have seen it in Spain with the floodings, and Uganda have an awful flash hit a lot of people that were dead. There are too much energy in the atmosphere at the moment. And we have already scratched the 1.5 degree mark that we agreed not to exceed in the Paris Agreement. Scientific observations show that global warming is happening faster than ever before. And this is not all. Global economy is coming under pressure and climate-related disasters increase. Let's listen to the disturbing report of one of the world's most respected climate experts, Johan Rockström from Sweden, member of the Club of Rome and co-author of Earth of All. We just listened for 3 minutes. More on this later.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Carol. We don't hear it.
The Earth system scientists and climate scientists are getting seriously nervous. The planet is changing faster than we have expected. We are, despite years of raising the alarm, now seeing that the planet is actually in a situation where we underestimated risks. Abrupt changes are occurring in a way that is way beyond the realistic expectations in science. 15 years back, I introduced the planetary boundary framework, the scientific framework with the 9 Earth system processes that determines the stability, the resilience, and the life support on planet Earth. 10 years back, the world signed the Paris Climate Agreement. Almost 5 years back, we entered the decisive decade where our choices will determine the future for all generations on planet Earth. Where are we on this journey halfway into this decade? I will give you a scientific state of the planet report, the most objective assessment that science can give today. And it starts here. We've reached 1.2 degrees Celsius of global mean surface temperature rise, the warmest temperature on Earth over the past 100,000 years. We have just scratched on 1.5 degrees Celsius as an annual mean in 2023. But what worries us most is this. We are starting to see an acceleration of warming over the past 50 years, 0.18 degrees Celsius per decade from 1970 to 2010. But then from 2014 onwards, it abruptly jumps up to 0.26 per decade. And if we follow this path, we will crash through 2 degrees Celsius within 20 years and hit 3 degrees Celsius by the year 2100, a disastrous outcome caused by us humans. But it's not only carbon dioxide. Any parameter that matters for human well-being and our economies look the same. Here you have it, linear change up until the 1950s. We go into the great acceleration, and this is what we're seeing across overconsumption of fresh water, the 6th mass extinction of species, over-eutrophying our freshwater systems with nitrogen and phosphorus, all of it undermining the stability of the planet. As if this was not enough, we are seeing that this is now causing impacts across the entire economy. We're seeing bigger and bigger invoices being sent by the Earth system onto societies across the entire world in droughts, floods, heat waves, disease patterns, human-reinforced storms, scientifically attributed to human-caused climate change. 40 degrees Celsius of life-threatening heat across all continents occurring in 2023. 52 degrees Celsius.
Yes, I think that's quite impressive and gives us a lot to ask for. And Zonta says now seeks climate justice for women and girls. We want women to be able to prevent, to prepare for, to respond to, and to recover from the impacts of climate change on the same basis as men. And we use the Zonta International Statement on Climate Change to guide our gender equal climate action locally, nationally, and internationally. We just wanted to draw your attention on the most pressing issue. And as you might know, and we discussed it already at CSW 68, it's the underlying key factor for what we are going to face now. The economic inequality between women and men remains one of the greatest threats to mankind. According to the World Bank, you can see the number here, approximately 690 million people lived in extreme poverty in 2023. And around 70% of all people living in poverty, 1.3 billion worldwide, 1.3 billion, are women and girls. In light of today's focus on women's ownership, let us remember that if we continue with business as usual, climate change will push up to 158 million more women and girls into poverty and 236 million more women into hunger. So global temperatures, population and consumerism are on the rise, as is wealth inequality. We live in a world where the top 10% of the population owns 3/4 of the wealth, takes half the income, and accounts for nearly half of global carbon emissions. Annual global gross domestic product has doubled since 2000, and we are using natural resources at an alarming rate to feed our consumerism. The global population doubled from 4 billion in 1974 to 8 billion today, and is expected to peak at 10.4 billion in 2086. So there is another decisive factor. The pandemic, climate disasters, wars, and armed conflicts have exacerbated the debt situation of many countries, with drastic consequences, especially for low and middle income countries. Debt drains resources away from healthcare, education, social protection, a green just transition, and addressing the impacts of the climate crisis. And it transfers resources to the pockets of foreign creditors. According to the International Monetary Fund, as of May 2023, 11 countries were in debt distress, while 51 countries were in severe moderate debt stress. The majority of donor countries failed to meet their commitment to 0.7% of gross national product for official development assistance. Under these conditions, imagine what happens to the economic gender gap. Since 2006, the Global Gender Gap Index of the World Economic Forum annually benchmarks the current state and evolution of gender parity across 4 key dimensions: economic participation and opportunity, educational attainment, health and survival, political empowerment. The index measures the efforts of 146 countries towards closing these gaps over time. According to the 2023 Global Gender Gap Index, no country has yet achieved full gender parity, although the top 9 countries, you can see them above in the table, already are very close to have disclosed at least at 80% or 80%. For the 14th years, I'm sorry, it's for the 14th years, it's Iceland, yeah, which is running the first position. And you can see Sweden and Germany as well on the top of the table in 5th and 6th, respectively, while Uganda are mid-table in 78th, ahead of Italy. But that's only the overall result. When it comes to women's economic participation and opportunity, Sweden ranks only 15th and Germany only 88th, imagine. And Uganda is ranked 102nd. The bottom line, it will take 131 years to close this gap of the current rate of progress. So back to you, Pia.
Thank you, Karin. Social norms, financial literacy, and lack of access to financial services are all barriers to women financial inclusion. Employment segregation, the unequal distribution of men and women across and within job types is often at the heart of gender disparities in labor market outcomes. Almost 1 billion women globally have no access to financial services. Their money is not protected. They have no access to savings or checking accounts or financial products like insurance, credit facilities, and loans. Worldwide, 70% of men are using the internet compared with 65% of women. In Africa, about 40 men and 30 women use the internet. And here is the thing. Women reinvest 90% of their income into their families and communities compared to 30–40% for men. This highlights the crucial role of women in economic development. What if we could close the gender gap? According to calculations by the McKinsey Global Institute, closing the gender gap could have added $28 trillion to the global GDP by 2025. So now we are all longing to hear our keynote speakers, and we will start with Jennie Sinclair. Jennie is an entrepreneur and investor and member of the board of the Swedish Ownershift Foundation. Using facts and figures, the foundation sheds light on the imbalance between men and women when it comes to ownership of property, land, houses, business, etc. Jennie knows that men own twice as much as women and can therefore exert more influence over the future. What exactly does that look like? And what impact does it have under the condition of climate change? We look forward to learning more about this with you, Jennie. A warm welcome to Jennie Sinclair. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here today. Am I on and can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. So
Yes.
I will share my presentation. Just a second. We'll see if it comes up here. Can you see it now?
Yes, very good.
Perfect.
Yes.
Good, good, good. So I will talk a bit about the organization that I was co-founding with a couple of fantastic women in Sweden. We're talking about the power of impact through ownership, the actual ownership shift, how we will do it will be in the presentation as well. So see if I can also change slides. There we go. Just a quick note about myself. I've been working in companies for all my life as CEO, as a board member of Telia, the biggest Swedish telecom company, etc. And my friends were also very successful. We were all working in those huge companies and we felt very achieved. We felt like the good girls, we made it. But a small thought started to enter our systems that we always had to report to the owners what we did, and we got the owner instructions on what to do. And we quickly realized that we don't own shit. We do not affect the future at all. The owners do. So what can we do about it? I was approached personally by my friends because I didn't call myself a feminist in the beginning. I was like working for freedom. I was working for humanism. I've always been an activist, but I didn't buy into the concept for some reason until I met my husband and we built a family together, and it all became very personal because I was in an illusion. I thought I had power. I thought I had my things together, but I only had the cash flow, the salary. I didn't have the actual ownership, which he did because he had built businesses. So when we quickly made a family of 3, I had to stand back and take care of the children, which I love and which I should do. But he had to take care of business, and we were not married, and we ended up in a power situation that was unthinkable for me as having freedom as my core value. Because all of a sudden he had all the assets, he had all the decision-making power, whereas I had just a cash flow stop that stopped my own power, so to say. But anyways, my friends approached me and they said, what can we do? And I said, okay, I sit among the billionaires now and have a look into what it actually looks like having money. If we can just paint this picture, if we can get real facts on what society looks like, and that we're in an illusion as women in Sweden, thinking that we are in one of the most equal parts of the world, the northern industry land. It's not true. We do not have the power because we do not have the money. So we started an organization and did it scientifically based, collecting all the facts about what does it look like in our country. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong picture. I was going to say that what I saw with my husband and with his friends, what they had a club of people with money and with power. So it's a boy's privilege to fulfill dreams, that we can conclude. And this is what happened, according to me, because I more believe in people like Jane Fonda.
If it wasn't for racism, you can take anything, sexism, racism, misogyny, homophobia, whatever, the war. And if you really get into it, and study it. Everything's connected. Where would they put the poison and the pollution? They're not going to put it in Bel Air. They've got to find some place where poor people, or indigenous people, or people of color are living. Put it there. They can't fight back.
I think she says it all very, very clearly. You don't want to put shit where you live. You don't want to put that where you have the money. You put it somewhere else. And this we have to really take into consideration. And I think we have to work together as women, as you do in Zonta, and to establish what the power structures look like in a way that cannot be in any way questionable. Therefore, we worked with the scientists. Therefore, we worked with people within the financial institutions that were already there and had their place in the system. So we created Ownershift, Power Shifts for Ownership, the organization, and we do every year a report on exactly who owns what in our society in Sweden. It's a think tank collecting, analyzing, and sharing scientific data concerning ownership of a country's resources in order to balance ownership between men and women. We believe that equal ownership will enable a better future for our society and also the possibility to fulfill dreams for each and every one of us. So what we came up with the first year was, if we look at property, land, stock, savings, cars, houses, etc., men own twice as much as women. So no, it's not strange that we feel this in the air. Of course, the collective says that we are in a very not good situation when it comes to bargaining and negotiating. If we look at the actual numbers, we see that people owning stock in Sweden, we have 70% men and 30% women. Same thing for land. We have 72% men, 28% women. Continuing on to track the money, we saw also now in the last year that when we look at dividends, who get the financial capital each year, 56 billion Swedish kronen more goes to men than to women. And this is the actual cash that you can invest, that you can fulfill your dreams with. It's when you already have the other parts of your world paid. And this is a very interesting key factor, because when it comes to investments, when it comes to what you actually put your money in, it's what will grow for the future for our children. So it's hugely important to have a look at this. We are now debating, we're affecting the decision makers legally in Sweden, and we have changed some of the laws for marriage, for example. We have changed, or at least trying to change through lobby, different financial institutions that give money to startup companies. So we're working on it continuously, and the only thing that worked so far is to have the actual data. Because if you own the opportunity. You own the opportunity to choose what is right for you and your children. You own the opportunity to leave a bad relationship or a bad situation. You own the opportunity to gain financial autonomy. And with this financial autonomy, not everyone's successful, but many, many people are when they actually put their effort into it. You can choose yourself what business you will build, what ideas to invest in, and what inventions to promote that can actually benefit the female part of the population, as well as climate, as well as everything else. So the opportunity you have with ownership is to influence our society at all levels. And it's absolutely necessary for us to take action on this. We also had a look lately on who owned the companies. And we have the same situation in everything. It's 74% men, 26% women. And now I'm not even talking about the actual capital, but the number of businesses, because that's what we could measure. We don't have access to all information yet. We're working on that as well. And if we drill it down in the companies, we lose a lot of power, because when we look at the board members that actually owns the shares, 75% of even the board directors own shares in the company, while women do not. So they have other kinds of positions on the board. Same thing goes for the CEO of the company. More CEOs that are men own in the company than women, and therefore they have more power within the company. So we didn't stop at looking at who owns the companies. We also looked at who the actual people are owning in the company, because we had this feeling, no, we don't have the decision yet, even if we have the roles, and this is why. So this is hard. It's difficult to get to a position where you also own the company. We have done now so far 5 different reports. The first one was who owns Sweden. The next one is why do men own more? We also have who owns the land, because that's a very big question when it comes to handling our land. Who's owning in marriage? A very, very interesting data showed up that when you enter in Sweden a marriage, the difference in capital in cash is 17%. But when you exit a marriage, that gap has increased by 350%. So we basically pay for family, whereas men pay for their dreams. So it's very, very shifted. It's not balanced at all. And then we have who owns the companies. And just a quick look at why this is so. I mean, we've been in a big shift, I think we all know, within the industrialized era, and we're trying to break it out. So I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just a fact that man is the norm, the normal. It translates better in Swedish. But they started the business environment and they have made the rules. And therefore they are the norms and the stereotypes. There's a lot of gender-based discrimination because of this, and it's not easy to change. There are social networks and role models set that are all men, and we have to change those as well. When we look at another area of hinders, there are 8 that we have discovered so far to why we're not owning today. We also have the pay gap, we have the gender segregation, we have the financial illiteracy and numeracy that we cannot avoid speaking of, which has been a big problem in Sweden, where we pretend that we're equal, but we're not, because men talk to their boys about economy and finances in a way to build companies and finances, whereas women talk about relationships in their free time. So the financial literacy becomes so much bigger within the boy crowd than within the girl crowd. And we have to be aware of this, and we have to actively find solutions to break that. And this all ends up in a big moment, 22, a circle that is hard to break, where we have lack of confidence in our own ability. We have behaviors that affect our economy and the decision making. And it lies within us and it lies within them. And we have to put them on the table. We have to show them in a scientific way that cannot be denied in order to break patterns, both within ourselves, but also within men.
We women are 51% of the population. We birth 100% of the population. We control over 80% of consumer spending. And by 2030, women are set to control much of the $30 trillion in wealth that will be inherited from baby boomers. So don't let the patriarchal rhetoric fool you. We have tremendous power, and we must press on together, in partnership always. Onwards. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I thought she said it better than I did. So together, I think we can all make this happen. We are actually half of the population, and we do know how to make business in our way. We have to find new structures that are fit for a woman's life. A woman's life includes children. It includes taking care of family. And it's absolutely possible to find new structures. And I talked to a lot of Zonta people about this before. We have the resources within our network. We could easily put together a group of 4 women, for example, with knowledge in marketing, finance, legal aspects, etc., and make an advisory board for a woman in her 30s that are having her worst time with children, for example. If she has a company, she would be helped by having this kind of advisory board that could work against profit in the company, for example. We can absolutely do it within our circles if we find new structures that suit our lives. And that will actually help balance up, I think, the future of ownership. Because what we do not understand, we fear. And what we know, we understand. And what we understand, we can change. With facts and statistics, we understand ownership, both in companies and in our private situations. And we have the resources and ability to do it on our own. Start talking about ownership. Start talking about the financial matters with your family, with your friends. Get a mentor. Invite more to share knowledge. Make a list of what you own and how you own today. Make the inventory and set new goals, revising every year. Together, we can make a long-term plan of how to own, what to own, and why to own, because women want to know why. And here is the why that you presented for me, Pia. We need to change the world, we need to change the climate, and we can do it together. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, just jump in.
Wow, thank you, Jenny. Jenny, fantastic presentation. So we will come back and discuss, and we are fulfilled with your thoughts and your facts and everything. And now, before we go out and discuss in our breakout rooms, I will hand over to Joan. Joan is a UNEP, United Nations Environmental Programme representative for Zonta International. She also works for Shared Action Africa, a women-founded and women-led non-profit organization based in Uganda that empowers women and girls to build sustainable livelihoods, lead healthy lives, and become agents for climate justice in rural and refugee communities. So Joan has a great affinity with today's topic. Over to you, Joan. We hope you have connection in Uganda. Do we have Joan with us?
Right now I can't see her, so probably I jump in for her until
Yeah,
she
thank you,
can.
Karen.
Yes, so thank you so much, Jennie Sinclair, and thank you, Pia. And it is with great pleasure that I introduce you to Saadat Nakyejwe Kimuli from Kampala in Uganda. She is a highly accomplished associate professor with extensive experience in education, research, and entrepreneurial leadership. And she's highly regarded for the proven ability to provide strategic insight, foster innovation, and drive positive change within academic institutions. She is passionate about promoting excellence in education and fostering a thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem in Uganda. She's as well currently the principal investigator of the research Sustainable Urban Transport Planning, integrating a metro system into the transport sector of Kampala metropolis, an urgent topic for a healthy planet. We are so glad to have you here, Saadat. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Good afternoon here in Kampala to everyone. My name is Saadat Nakyejwe Kimuli. You hear me? Kindly confirm that you hear me very well.
Yes, I can
Yes,
hear you.
we hear you very well.
Saadat.
Do you see me very well as well?
I can see you. And if you'd like to share your screen, you can do so at any time.
Oh yeah, I'm going to share my screen. I'll first make my introduction now because of
Right. Yeah, that's working.
Can you kindly confirm that you see my screen as well?
Yes,
Yes,
yes, very good.
Great. I will leave my video on for the first part of the discussion, maybe the first screen. My internet is a little shaky, so I would like to just remove the video after the first slide. Once again, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Saadat Nakyejwe Kimuli. I'm an associate professor of entrepreneurship at Makerere University Business School, one of the Harvard, the business school of Uganda. I'm honored to present at the Zonta International Tank on the topic of women entrepreneurship in Uganda. My research is in women entrepreneurship, education, sustainable entrepreneurship, digital entrepreneurship, among others. And for today particularly, we are going to explore on how we can empower women through ownership and other economic opportunities, particularly in land and business, so that we can drive that gender equality and sustainable development across our communities. So to set the stage, let's begin with, if you can allow me to just get this video off. Video off. Let me share again. Yeah. We are back.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Okay. To set the stage, let's begin with an overview of women's land ownership in Uganda. Currently, we only have 16% of women in Uganda owning land independently. Currently, 7%, just 7%, is what is registered as landholders. And despite the vital role the women play in Uganda, we have them owning only that 7%. It's quite little. Then we can see approximately 90% of these rural Ugandan women working in agriculture and producing nearly 90% of the nation's food. This kind of disparity in land ownership is both on the economic and social issue. So women at the same time face challenges, significant barriers, including restrictive customary laws, inheritance issues, and limited access to credit. Now, without land rights, they struggle with economic insecurity and they lack the collateral needed for the loans, that is the land, which ultimately limits their ability to grow these businesses and build wealth. So why are we even talking about the land ownership? Why is it really important for us to be discussing here land ownership? First, it provides economic security. Land ownership gives women a stable source of income, and it can also be used as collateral to access financial services, opening doors to economic independence. So beyond the financial security, land ownership also strengthens the women's social influence. Women who own land also gain respect in my country and also authority as well within the households and in the communities as well. And on a larger scale, women have economic stability. It uplifts, if once these women have the economic stability, it uplifts the entire families, communities, improving the children's education and community. That is the ripple effect we can be talking about now. Turning to entrepreneurship. 30% of Ugandan entrepreneurs are women, primarily in the sector, like I said before, agriculture. Yes, we have retail and other services, but most of them are tagged into agriculture. This is a growing and essential sector of our economy, yet women face those significant challenges that I had mentioned before, such as limited access to capital, inadequate business training. This is really deep, deeper than probably what we think, because continuous learning helps on these women to improve and grow their businesses, whether they are meso, small, informal. For as long as they do not have training, it limits also their access to market. So their potential and opportunities are limited. However, supporting women entrepreneurs offers tremendous potential. Women-owned businesses drive economic growth in this country and job creation, contributing to Uganda's broader economic stability. Now, in addition to other solutions that probably we could advance, I said earlier on, a scholar in entrepreneurship, but with very great deep interest in sustainable entrepreneurship, particularly sustainable entrepreneurship practices, where we advocate as a solution here, balancing people, planet, and profit. This can help women entrepreneurs to create resilient businesses. Women can uplift their communities. They can adopt eco-friendly practices to protect the environment and also to achieve the growth that sustains their families and communities. All right. Now, besides the, let me put this here. Besides the sustainable entrepreneurship as a solution, there also we can talk a little bit more about the microloans. Like I mentioned before, we did a study in Owino market, one of the largest markets in Uganda. And here we can see that we have 7,000 women against the 12,000 vendors in this market. Almost more than 60%, I guess. All these women depend on microloans in Uganda. So what are we talking about here on microloans? Microloans are the ones that are most powerful tools for this women's empowerment. These small loans allow individuals without collateral. Like I said, most of them do not own land. And also, the main banks cannot give them money because, one, they do not have collateral. Two, they don't have the training. Three, they are small. No bank can really try to support such. So in the end, we have microloans in this case, and programs like Finca in my country, Uganda, Finca Uganda, Braka Uganda, Pride. These have empowered thousands of women with microloans. And these women show high repayment rates, indicating responsible use of funds and sustainable business growth. However, I must say that many rural women still lack access to even these microloans due to the limited graphical availability or even awareness, I must say. So expanding these programs, the Finca Uganda, BRAC Uganda, Pride, Women Finance, all these, if they are extended to those places, it would be very important. I will just illustrate by talking about some of the success stories of these women business owners, I would say, because they're quite micro in a way. So I'll first talk about Grace. Grace here. Grace also used a micro loan to expand her farm. Through sustainable farming practices, she created jobs. Now here we are talking of people. People, if they are really given the jobs, it's a good practice to empower other women. We look at protecting the planet, protecting her soil and environment by using sustainable practices in her farm. And then she also generated income for her family. Then we look at also another story of Nakyejwe's tailoring shop. This one particularly was on a Vino market. Here, she opened a tailoring shop with a micro loan. She employs several women and she uses eco-friendly materials, reducing on waste and promoting sustainability. She repairs, recycles, reproduces, basically the errors. Yeah. She employed them. And this is a way that helps her even innovate further and produce more. That way, she's able to balance up, make profit. There is social justice here, caring for her people. Then again, she's also promoting environmental protection here. Nakyejwe's shop was profitable and her sustainable practices ensured that her business thrives and while she was supporting the environment and her community. Now here we see both Grace and Nakyejwe embodied also sustainable entrepreneurship by balancing up people, planet, and profit to create lasting and positive impacts in their communities. Now, having said that, I want to talk about the dilemma of the climate change here. Now, let's address now this impact of the climate change on women's empowerment. Women farmers, like I said, the majority of the Ugandan women, either directly or indirectly, are in the agriculture sector. Women farmers who produce the majority of this food are disproportionately affected by the climate change due to droughts, floods, unpredictable weather patterns that lead to crop failure. Now, that chain is all destroyed in a way, and this reduces their income and creates also additional financial stress in terms of debt here. Once the climate affects their crop, there is crop failure. Remember, they have to go back and pay the micro loan. They do not own any land. The burden really goes on and on. So for women who are already burdened with debt, then climate change compounds their economic vulnerability. Addressing climate injustice by promoting climate resilient agricultural practices, sustainable practices, improving also land rights and expanding access to finance is essential for empowering women to adapt and thrive. As we consider the economic, as we consider the economic barriers, we must also look at the dilemma, the debt dilemma. I hope I haven't missed any, sorry. Yes, I'm here. So as we consider that economic barriers, we must also look at also that debt trap, where women have to access the education. They have to be trained on, be given the financial literacy, because practically most of them just go into circles. They do not understand even why they are getting the debt. They do not have business skills. Yes, this is improving, I must say, but again, we need to do a little bit more. Women without access to financial education, property rights, or stable employment often get caught in that circle. Climate change intensifies this by further reducing their income and increasing their financial instability. So now that economic, of course, this creates that economic dependency on men. And that economic dependency can make women vulnerable to domestic violence, as they may feel trapped into these abusive relationships. Like, you know, violence against women is not just anyway an economic consequence, it's also an economic cause, I must say. So financial instability leaves women with fewer options, while climate stress and resource scarcity can also increase domestic violence. So to address this, we must equip women with financial education, training, property rights, and economic opportunities to build resilience and security. Now, I call upon Zonta international members that you may have the power to make the difference, supporting policies, reforms to promote women's rights, and that consider contributing to microloan programs or partnering with organizations that provide business training. Like I provide personally, I volunteer to train women in businesses so that they can do better. Yeah, because it is very important, record keeping. You know, it's not what we see out there. It's it gets bad with the micro businesses. So by engaging with local communities and supporting sustainable initiatives, Zonta members can also help create a ripple effect of positive change. Thank you all for your attention. I would like to open the floor for questions. Please feel free to ask about any topics we've discussed. I have discussed today. And I hope I've done so well with my time. Back to you. Thank you for listening.
Wow. Thank you so much, Saadat. It was great. And I love that you also asked us to do something concrete about it. So I think there's a lot to discuss now in our breakout sessions. Yeah, because it really shows that us what is happening, yeah, around the globe, and especially also in the global south. And the contrast can't be more interesting in between what we are talking here about, Jennie, and in the northern part of the world, and what we have to talk about in the global south, and that we have to talk together. That's very important, and that's what we are going to do now in our breakout sessions. So Carol, while you are creating them, I'd like to keep you a little bit in mind what you listened at now with Jennie, and also with the wonderful lecture of Saadat, and what questions you might have, and also what you are observing in your country as a hindrance for women's thriving, and yeah, what do you think that we should have changed?
Right, so how did you go in the breakout rooms? I'll call on Angela first. She was in group 1. Would you like to share with us what your group was talking about, please, Angela?
Absolutely. We had a male join us, and he was quite impressed with the presentation and understood more of what we were dealing with by the realities of the untapped opportunity and the keen awareness of the knowledge gap, and looking at how our efforts impact the inequality in ownership. Then Helen spoke about, we do have less resources. It does come back to the pay gap, and so much is tied back to the unpaid caregiver roles that we all find ourselves in, and then in turns lead to the violence against women. And then Dr. Voss was speaking about how do we work about encouraging and supporting from the roles of men, of fathers, to educate their girls and to really work on opening the opportunities for the awareness, for the curiosity, so that we can grow from the educational aspect.
Excellent, excellent. What did your group find, Karen?
Yes, it was also very interesting. Marie de los Santos shared some experiences in Melina if it comes to supporting sustainable businesses and of women, and going for microloans. And it was then that Saadat told us about the advantage for businesses that follow a circular economy, meaning that's all about recycling and basing innovation on that as well. So sustainable businesses can be very good supported by those microloans. But here's the thing, and she stressed that once again, it's all about also giving the access to economic literacy, showing the people how to deal with that, with the microloans, what can be done with it. So that would be very important to fund also. And it could be also a Zonta project to fund things like that, so that we can encourage women and girls to found their own businesses. They run those very important teaching programs, and that's crucial, I think, that they have the money to really inform the people how this works. Yeah, that was one very interesting point. And the others, of course, we are all, I think, common with those conflicts we have if it comes to debt crisis, things like that. We suffer the same consequences in all countries, but on different levels. But she pointed out that if you are under pressure with climate change and with debt, losing all your livelihood, it's for women, it's even worse, because violence against women is increasing. That's what we face all over the world. And that was also a very important point to me in this day to have in mind.
What did your group say? What did they
Thank you,
come?
Carol. Yeah, we also had a suggestion to support in one way the microloan with some kind of funding and through the insurance companies, or make a local project to start with or something like that. That was one concrete idea. We have also a member that works for another organization, ALEF, that corporate or that help people in the poor part of Uganda, and Zonta could cooperate with that organization as well. And we put the light on artificial intelligence, that the fact that AI increases the differences, because they use old data and everything. So it just moment 22 there, and we need to learn about that. Women need to learn, and we need to learn our kids about that. So yeah, because they use the men's data, the men's figures and everything. It's scary. And also we had a talk about stock values. We need to be more on the stock market, and yeah, we have very fruitful inspiration talks. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Pia. Judith, how did you go in your group?
Okay, so yeah, great discussion too. We started off with Jenny's presentation, just somebody mentioning about, yeah, it's shocking that women are not owners of more companies or on boards and whatnot, because women tend to be, well, in the North anyway, highly educated. And so what we need to do is to put ourselves forward more into these positions, and say that, yes, we are owners and we are the decision makers and we are not deferring to anyone else. But then we moved on to the other presentation and talked about, well, the question came up was, is there any sort of a global program to provide micro-funding? And maybe the UN, or is there some sort of a program like that? But I think it was mentioned that perhaps Zonta could do something like this, but to help women, particularly in the global South. Then it was mentioned, though, that there is a program in Bangladesh, so countrywide in Bangladesh, and the government provides microloans and money for training. It wasn't quite certain whether it was just targeted for women or if it was men and women. So maybe some more information to find out there. But we were saying that we need to make loans available to women because women have a tendency or are more likely to have more sustainable businesses, sustainable agriculture. So,
Okay, excellent.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that. And I hope you all had interesting discussions in your groups. I've just shared the screen again, and I think, Karen, you're picking it up from here?
Yes, thank you, Carol, and yeah, thank you for the audience and the discussion. Well, I think yeah, one point is that Zonta International is committed to the 2030 agenda signed by the 193 member states of the United Nations, and implementing the 17 SDGs of this agenda is critical to solving the planetary emergency women suffer the most from, as we learned today again from our keynote speakers under the patriarchal structure. And so we know that all 17 goals, of course, are interrelated, but the one right in the center of it is gender equality, of course. And without gender equality, we won't end poverty, and we won't ensure good health and well-being, and we won't have decent work and economic growth. And the sad truth is, as you might know, that we are not on track with not even half of the goals. Only 15% of the SDGs are on track, and for more than a third of the targets, progress has stalled or even regressed. Imagine. And this, of course, raises questions. What exactly is the problem here, and what do the scientists say, and how could we accelerate the process of implementing the SDGs? That's what we were asking us on the meta level. And so we asked, are we trying to work in a broken economic system? And of course, there are experts that know much better about those questions, like Kate Raworth. She's a British economist from the University of Oxford, and she pointed out that our economic understanding is still based on the narrative of continuous growth, derived from theories of the 17th and 18th centuries and further developed in the 1920s and 1970s. And you might all know about Adam Smith probably, or John Maynard Keynes. Yeah? GDP developed in the US in the 1920s to track the country's economic development after the Great Depression remains to be primary indicator of economic growth, but fails to consider income distribution, environmental quality, and human well-being. So the question is it still suitable to address 21st century challenges and achieve the SDGs? Or is there any alternative to endless growth? How could we all thrive within the planetary boundaries. And here is Kate Raworth's proposal based on a popular sweet pastry. What is it all about? It's about a reproductive and redistributive economic of well-being within the planetary boundaries. And we heard about that from Saadat, for instance. So what's exactly to be done? Let's find out. If we take a look at the solution for which Kate Raworth took the picture of a donut, we see the ecological ceiling and the social foundation and how they are interrelated. Did you already find gender equality? It is, of course, it's central part of the social foundations, like as well housing, networking, energy, water, food, health, and of course education. We talked about that. Income and work, peace, justice, political voice, and social equity. And you may have noticed already the 12 building blocks of the social foundations correspondent to many of the SDGs. And the Club of Rome put this this donut in his book, Earth for All, a survival guide for humanity. And Earth for All, as you might know, proposes two scenarios: business as usual and a giant leap to achieve the change that is needed within a generation. And for the giant leap scenario, Earth for All uses the 9 planetary boundaries and the 12 social boundaries identified in donut economies. And the giant leap scenario is where societies adopt unprecedented and immediate action across 5 interconnected turnarounds, and poverty, address gross inequality, empower women, transform the food system, and transition to clean energy. And it is not out of nowhere that the empowerment of women appears right in the middle of the 5 transformative turnarounds. Kate Raworth is also a member of the Club of Rome and a supporter of the 5 critical turnarounds suggested. And she says that it is time to shift from the age of endless growth to an age of thriving in balance. Well, how could it work? According to the scientists, we need a new regulation of the financial markets for a regenerative and distributive economy. This would include a tax on large fortunes, the closure of tax havens, a shift from taxing income to taxing accumulated wealth, and a shift from taxing labor to taxing resource consumption to promote sustainable, prosperous and finally, more equitable access to credit and debt relief for low income and countries as needed. And then we need to create a new economic operating system, moving away from supposedly beneficial social welfare towards an unconditional basic income and a citizen's return. This return is fed by citizens' funds, into which companies and corporations pay for the use of the commons. Unsustainable activities should cost companies more in taxes and fees, and these funds can then be used to do more to protect the environment, the species, and the climate, and to finance innovative solutions. And last but not least, a new monetary model combined with demurrage fees, meaning fees for holding money, can make it much more attractive to invest in sustainable and ecologically sound public goods and assets instead in the opposite. So, well, of course, the United Nations Future Summit in New York was a really defining moment for those ideas and for what Zonta is going for with its mission. World leaders adopted the Pact for the Future. The potentially groundbreaking outcome document also includes a declaration on future generations, and a global digital pact to promote intergenerational justice and protect human rights on the internet. The pact states very clearly where we stand. The aim of the pact is to accelerate action to get the sustainable development goals back on track and fully implemented by 2030. And as you may see here from the actions I brought for you, it's just an excerpt. Central to all of this is the empowerment of all women and girls as an essential prerequisite for achieving the implementation of the SDGs, as well as the strengthening of measures of to combat climate change. And action 47 to 53, and here's the thing, are aimed at reforming the international financial architecture. As the Club of Rome report made clear, without such a reform, it will not work. A key factor for this is formulated in Action 53. We will develop a framework on measures of progress on sustainable development to complement and go beyond gross domestic product. And isn't that the perfect basis for a joint advocacy effort? Over to you, Carol.
I'm very aware of time, Karen. So what I was going to suggest was that I'll just have a quick look on the chat line to see if we have any comments on the chat that we can have commenting to here. I noticed that Jennie Sinclair had to leave because she had to move out of the room that she was in. And I noticed that we've had some people have enjoyed the conversations that they have had. We had a comment on stock market. We discussed in our club that only the minority of stock market businesses are owned or run by women. So it may be interesting to support women's stock and get part of it. An ETF with only women's stock values would be one step in that and would be great. This gives women more possibilities to raise their voice. Just an idea to look at. It's no alternative to microloans, but it may exist side by side. So that's there's some good ideas that are coming through from people. Did anyone have any questions that they would like to ask anyone just now? Please put them in the chat or raise your hand on the machine. I'll just see if I can open up my participants line again. Whoops, I've got someone else coming back. Right, if you can just see if there's any more hands raised. I don't see any more hands raised on the machine. Okay, so what I'm going to suggest is if you do have any questions that you want to ask, you can either put them in the chat line and we'll ask the speakers to answer them later on, or you can email us. So I'll just move on to the next part of the meeting. So Karen, Pia, which one of you is taking over from this?
Yes, well, I think, yeah, you see that without the North-South dialogue, nothing really works. It's crucial that we are talking with each other about our experiences and that we go on eyesight and look for solutions together. I mean, do solutions like the donut economies fit with what Saadat is experiencing in Uganda. And it sounds like that if we listen to her and to her lecture, of course. So I think, yeah, we should really continue to do what Zonta says now always do, to establish the dialogue in between Global North and Global South. And yeah, next, if we in this if we have got a lot of resources, and if you are interested for a deep dive into today's topic, then I highly recommend the actual fact sheet of Zonta Says Now. There you can find as well the fact and figures we were talking about today. And I hope that we also get the wonderful presentations of our keynote speakers, so you can find them within a sec on our webpage, as always. And yes, and then I'd love to, well, I think this is just released. I'd love to just turn your attention on what's next. And the 29th session of the Conference of the Parties is scheduled to begin November 11 in Baku, Azerbaijan, again an oil country. And key expected outcomes from COP29 include a new collective quantified target for climate finance, replacing the current target of $100 billion per year, and guidelines for the implementation of the new loss and damage fund. So that's something very crucial. You remember our discussion on debt and the debt stress. And let's pay, please, close attention to how women and girls in all their diversity and with all their human rights, knowledge, and needs are represented in the process. So yeah, and one last question. We are all before the 16 days of action against gender-based violence. Zonta is very committed to this with Zonta Says No. And I just want to leave you with the economic cost of gender-based violence. Imagine, only in Germany, the costs are estimated to be 54 billion euro. This is approximately 58.5 US dollar, billion per year. It's unimaginable. European Institute for Gender Equality showed us that with a report, and that means that's 148 million per day, which posted that in Germany last year, I think 155 women were murdered by their partners or ex-partners, only this number. So what if the victims of gender-based violence were mainly men? What could be the deal then? And how much money would they consider the protection against violence to be worth? And I think, yeah, that makes us think the question. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. So we've had quite a busy evening or morning, afternoon, wherever you are today. And if you would like to find out more about Zonta or would like to get in contact, please visit the website or email us. We're more than happy to answer any questions you may have. And a huge thank you to our speakers today, who are absolutely brilliant, raised some really interesting areas. And I'd just like to sort of give a round of applause to them.
Yes.
And if I'd like you to suggest that you all open up your cameras and your mics now, and we can just say goodbye with a big smile. So thank you all. Just like to say cheerio to everybody.
Yes.
So keep breathing, keep smiling.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.